Yeah, good morning, Ron. Thanks for joining us as you do every Monday now, along with the Academy Wildlife of Education. You guys are been open now for a couple weeks over at Merle Hay, just right next to Target over there in the mall. How are things going for you guys?
It's awesome. I mean, the crowds have been great. The wildlife ambassadors are enjoying interacting with the general public, and so everybody's learning something. The people are learning about the wildlife species that are native to Iowa, and the ambassadors are learning what kids look like through glass.
I bet they are.
All entertaining.
Now, you brought an ambassador here today in the form of a fox who has a very nice coat as we head into these chilly temperatures.
Now, as I mentioned last week, I've been to your a store, display, whatever you want to call it, at the mall, and it's really nice. And it only costs $5 to get in, and I think you guys are crazy because it's worth so much more than that. And one of the things I learned was how many different colors of foxes we have in Iowa.
Right, the red fox has been mistaken for many different animals. Believe it or not, this fox color face here was mistaken as a cougar down in the Oskaloosa area.
Really?
Oops.
Right, yeah, big oops. The report was two people said that there was an animal out there that had a long tail with a white tip on it. Well, there's only two animals in Iowa that have got a white tip on their tail. The first one's the bobcat, and he's got a really short tail,
right,
and the other one's anything in the red fox family. And so basically it was a red fox.
Or a beagle.
Beagle would work too. That's right, a little low to the ground.
So a red fox has a long black tail with a tip on the end.
Well, the red fox has got a white tip.
Oh, a white tail. Oh, white tip. Okay.
All red foxes, no matter what color phase, they come in a silver color phase and a cross when the two combine. But no matter if it's a wild dog, it's got a white tip on its tail, it's a member of the red fox family.
Now, these guys, you'll see, they seem to be able to adapt to the suburbs, the urban areas as well.
Right, yeah, that's the one thing is I think all wildlife is adapting to people now. It's been, what, 500-600 years, and the wildlife has figured out we're not leaving. And so one of two things happen. They either go extinct because they can't handle the changes, or they adapt, and we're finding that wildlife will adapt. And that's why here in Des Moines, you can see red foxes in town, coyotes, there's river otters, mink, obviously the deer in town. There's just a lot of variety of wildlife that lives in the city now.
Now, you're holding this fox almost as you would a pet, but it should be noted that foxes are not meant to be pets.
Right. Again, what we do with our wildlife ambassadors, they're imprinted. They have to go out and do educational programs, and so these guys go to many different schools and different organizations as far as education for wildlife conservation goes. So we imprint them, and so they're not like a wild animal or a zoo animal or anything like that. There's totally different protocols. But when we're working with wildlife ambassadors, we want to make sure people have a chance to see it, hear it, and whenever possible touch it, because then they start to care about things quite a bit more.
Tell us a bit about the life cycle of the fox and breeding and what they eat and all that.
Sure. Well, the cool thing about foxes, even this one here, they're very cat-like, feline-like, and so when they're first born, we call their offspring kits instead of pups, and so they'll have a litter of kits in the spring, usually about 4 in a litter, and they are very cat-like. They bounce around, they jump up in the air, and they interact. And they're a social group. Mom and dad help raise the offspring for a year, and then in the fall they disperse and go off and start their own families. And then you'll see them hunting in the winter. It's very cool when there's a big crust of snow on the ground. You'll see them cock their ears and they'll listen, and then they jump straight up in the air, nose dive into the ground, and they're hunting mice and voles and stuff like that are under the snow.
With it getting colder out there and having those wonderful fur coats, are we going to see or possibly see more foxes out there this time of year?
Well, it's easier to see wildlife in the winter than it is in the summer. In the summer, you've got the cover of the grass and the trees and stuff, and it's hard to see animals that way. In the wintertime, everything's out in the wide open. And so when you're out at Saylorville or Red Rock, you might actually see these guys walking across the frozen ice, going from point A to point B, or across a field, stuff like that. So certainly, it's a lot easier to see stuff. And then when Jason was talking about snow, we get excited about it because when it sticks, then we become canine trackers. We go to Wisconsin, we help monitor the wolf population. So we want the snow to stick around for about 3 to 4 days. We get a good set of tracks out there, then we're out there tracking, and we're going to do that here in Iowa this year too. We've got a scientific team ready to do some research for us.
Now you were telling me about the kind of an inverse relationship between the fox and the coyote population in Iowa. So they kind of go up and down.
Well, that's nature. Everything has a balance. And again, when you let nature balance things out, things work pretty well. Everything goes in a life cycle. And it's the same thing with the wild dogs. The wolves keep the coyotes in check. The coyotes keep the foxes in check. Unfortunately, we don't have a healthy ecosystem in Iowa, so we don't have the apex predators, the wolves, to keep the coyotes in line. So we've got an overabundance of coyotes in the state of Iowa, which can suppress your fox population. Now, in some areas of the state, we saw a resurgence of red fox, and so there was a bout of mange that went through the coyotes, and that knocked their numbers down a bit. But you know, we do have some problems as far as wildlife management in the state, and everybody should get involved as far as those conservation issues that are relevant to them.
Are these dangerous animals at all, fox?
No, they're not dangerous. It's just like any other small canine. These guys like to eat rodents mostly, rabbits, squirrels. They're opportunistic. They'll eat whatever they can find on the ground. Amphibians, reptiles, berries, grasses. I mean, they're very much omnivorous as far as their diet goes. As far as taxonomy goes, they're classified as a carnivore, so they'll eat meat, but they're not going to bother us and stuff. They're just like any other wildlife species. All they want to do is exist, and in wild places is what they prefer. But if there's food around, if you leave dog food out, cat food out, they will find it, they will come back, and they'll tell their friends.
Oh my goodness. Well, absolutely beautiful animal. If you would like to see more of the foxes around the area or learn about more of the great wildlife ambassadors you have, how can they do that?
Well, again, anybody can come to the Academy of Wildlife Education at Merle Hay Mall. What's great about today is it is Veterans Day, so if you've got your military ID card, whether you're active or retired, you and your family get in free today.
Wonderful.
And
nice
so it's a great thing. We've got a lot of veterans in my family, one of my sons and my dad and uncle. I mean, we've got a big history of veterans in our family, and so this is one thing we can do to give back to them. And so we want to make sure everybody understands as far as Great Day viewers go. If you're a veteran, you're welcome. And then those of you that want to come out and celebrate the veterans, come out and thank them as you see them at the Academy today.
Wonderful.
I can't encourage folks enough to head out there. We had a great time, and it's really neat. So make a point of doing it.
You want to go check it out. Like you said, $5 for adults
So
and
$2 for kids.
$2 for kids. You can't beat that.
Right, and if you're under one, you get in free, but you probably want to make sure your parent came with you. So, absolutely.
Well, check out other great animals like our red fox friend here and learn more about a lot of the great animals and wildlife you can see right here in Iowa. Just head over to Merle Hay Mall right next to Target. Thank you guys for coming in. Can't wait to see what you bring in next week.
Oh, we've already talked about it. Wait till you see it.
Oh, no. And remember, today, veterans get in for free. We'll be